Former Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says he was flagged while transiting Antigua. During a media briefing, Dr. Rowley revealed that he was informed he appeared on a watch list, which was later confirmed to be an Interpol list.
Last week, Sunday, I left this country to travel to another Caribbean country. I had to travel through one Caribbean country to another. And quite a few of you knew when you asked me what I was going to do when I retire, I told you I'm going to spend the time with my wife and my children and grandchildren. I'm doing that right here. And where else they are. And that I would be traveling. I told you that. So as I make my bookings and so a number of persons would know my whereabouts. And I went ahead and talked to people. But in this season of hatred, spite, and retribution, it's not common for uncomplimentary things and unfounded allegations and accusations to be thrown in my direction. I consider that to be part of the course. The course is getting rougher, the horizon is getting darker, but it's still part of the course. I left here last week Sunday, and I arrived in Antigua. When I got to Antigua, I did not inform the Antiguan authorities that I was coming there, that I could have. I'm traveling on a diplomatic passport, identified as the former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago in that passport. I am in transit to Montserrat, where I am going as a guest of the government of Montserrat to participate in some activities there. When I got to Antigua, I had a little labour of a few hours. I went through the normal arrangements that other entrants would go through. And I submitted my passport when it was my turn to enter Antigua on my way to Montserrat. I got tremendous assistance from the officer in contact with me, who assisted me in putting the app on my phone and making the application to enter and so on. And then this officer was extremely nice to me, very cooperative, very happy to be dealing with me. And she then went through her process. She put the passport to the machine reading instrument. And then she blinked. She slowed down her conviviality. And then she asked me to hold down. And she left me standing there. And she disappeared behind some counter into some office. And after a significant period in the context of going through immigration, she came back. Her demeanor changed a little bit, but she was still very pleasant, and she did not tell me anything. She went through the process, and she asked me to come through, and she escorted me out of the area where I was standing. I didn't think much of it, because I've been through many airports. I've filled up with 5 passports in my day, or more than 5 passports, I should say. So I was familiar with something. So I got into Antigua, and I'm in the airport, and a little surprisingly after, Antigua security came looking for me, found me, and took me into the protocol system, and took me into the executive lounge, where I would complete my waiting. One of the officers who I interacted with there, in making conversation with her, I mentioned my delay at immigration. Because I was kind of, while not bothered, I was a little concerned. And somewhere along the line, I was then told after I was there for a while, somebody spoke to somebody, and then I was told that the reason why I was delayed is because I was on a watch list. I didn't say anything then because I didn't want to create any issue in Antigua. I went on to Montserrat. I was received in Montserrat and enjoyed the protocols of the government of Montserrat and the people of Montserrat for a week. And we did what we had to do, and I came back to Antigua on my way home. I'm going through the system again in similar manner. This time a different officer. And the process went very smoothly until my passport was submitted to the machine data reading base. Same story. The officer stopped me, asked me to hold on, and the officer disappeared again. After a protracted period, the officer came back to me and said to me that I was on some list which requires me to be what's going on there. So I asked the officer, well, what is this about? The officer said to me, I can't tell you what's about, but if you want to speak to my supervisor, I can arrange for you to speak to the supervisor. I said, yes, I want to speak to the supervisor. I went to speak to the supervisor, and the supervisor, again, extremely pleasant officer, explained to me that this development, which I'm experiencing, is as a result of mistaken identity. And I found that a little strange because I don't know that is the kind of thing that happens to me. And I asked, mistaken identity with whom? And she said, another person who may not have the same birth date as you. All right. I asked, and who is interested in that person? She said, Antigua police. And that's when I got very concerned, and I knew that this is not just any ordinary situation. Yes. People's location and Antigua police are not arbitrary things. I continued to travel on to Trinidad and Tobago. I got back here in San Diego, and I made the necessary investigations through Carnival. And my colleagues, my friends in Carnival at that time knew where to talk to. And it was confirmed to me then that I was on Interpol. And the issues that arose in Antigua are as a result of Antigua police responding to Interpol and Interpol's interest in me. Ladies and gentlemen, it immediately raises the question, what exactly would have happened with me and to me to cause Interpol to be interested in me? Because I told you earlier on, Interpol deals with criminal matters. So for the fact that, and is no longer a question here as the officer told me in immigration of mistaken identity, it is confirmation that I am of interest in Interpol. I'm saying here now to you that the only way my name could have got to Interpol, it would have, by way of documentation of one kind or another, placed there by some authority, either in Trinidad and Tobago or some other nation. Interpol covers 190 other countries in the world. Interpol covers them all. And what it means is that once you go on that list, that interest is available to every country in the world, every police or immigration authority in the world, because you are now a peculiar person of interest for criminal matters. And usually it is criminal fugitive matters. People who are wanted and cannot be found, you ask Interpol to help you find them people who are fleeing a country, you ask Interpol to identify them so they can be detained until the country who is looking after them, looking for them, get to the station first. And then the question arises, how did I get on Interpol's list? And it is crystal clear to me that my name could only have gone to Interpol from an entity or entities in Trinidad and Tobago. The way, as a former chairman of the National Security Council, I am familiar with these matters. I know that there would be a particular officer who is the Interpol contact. So anybody in Trinidad and Tobago for whom Interpol is to be invoked, that particular officer would be involved. That officer is a police officer. And as I read for you from the website a while ago, the Commissioner of Police is the head of that bureau which the police can invoke from time to time. So I'm saying here now to you that having experienced what I experienced in Antigua 3 times in the last few days, it has to be that there are questions to be answered here to me and to the public by the Commissioner of Police as to whether in fact I am, as a former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, having left office 3 months ago, enjoying my retirement, moving forward into whatever years I have left in me. What is it I have done in this country to have put me under the rubric of criminal and moving from one CARICOM nation in Trinidad and Tobago through Antigua on my way to Montserrat, which would be known to the authorities there if they check the correct database, which is available to them, that I am deemed to be in the category of fugitive, so that I have to be stopped by Antigua immigration and wanted by Antigua police on the request of Interpol. Interestingly enough, I went to London 2 weeks ago. I applied for a visa to enter the UK. I got a visa. I went to London. I came back from London. This all went very smoothly. That was normal. 1 week later, I'm going to Antigua and onward to Montserrat, and I am now in the category of fugitive and being experiencing what I just described to you. This raises the question. You would have seen the Commissioner of Police on his first day in office saying by the press conference to you all that he's all for transparency and accountability. And I here now say to him that I too would like that transparency to apply to me. And if he is to be believed, as per that press conference of the first day of office as Commissioner, I would like him to tell this population what exactly is the crime that I have some connection with in this country to cause the police to be moved and to be so moved as to have me being experiencing Interpol interaction. I'm not about the law. Make it very clear in this country. I have handled the authority over tens of billions of dollars and thousands of decisions in this country during my period as minister, as Prime Minister in particular. So if in that period of my activity I broke any law, I'm not above the law. It is for the police of this country to treat with me like any other citizen with respect to law enforcement. So if there's a matter, any matter, in which I am of interest to law enforcement, you've come here this morning, you see how clear the road is. You see where my location is. Everybody in this country knows where I am. The police knows where I am. There was a police booth outside my house there recently. I asked them to remove it because it's taking a dilapidated. There was police on my shoulder up until a few weeks ago. So if the police wants to have any interaction with me in Trinidad and Tobago, they could have done that and they could do that. And they are welcome to do that anytime. I would like to know, and I trust that the rest of the population would want to know, what would have been the circumstances and what is the guiding factor that would have caused the authorities in Trinidad and Tobago to get my name into the international community as a person who has issues with criminality in Trinidad and Tobago and is of such a nature that you require the involvement and assistance of Interpol. That officer who holds that desk of Interpol contact, if a matter comes up there of this nature, I would like to believe that no such action would be taken against any person without the senior superior officer being involved with appropriate oversight. And that senior superior officer, the Commissioner of Police, I would like to believe if the Commissioner of Police is in the loop, as he must be or ought to be, where a former Prime Minister of this country is to be put in the hands of Interpol and his name be put in the international circles for law enforcement to take note and appropriate action if so required, that the National Security Council of this country would be appropriately involved. And it's on that basis that I'm putting this squarely in the lap of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and the Commissioner of Police of Trinidad and Tobago and the Attorney General, who, it is my view, this development is the kind of development I would expect from the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago, an individual that I will get back to in the not too distant future. But for the moment, I just say to you that this is what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to say this to the wider national community, many of whom have taken sides one way or the other. I remember in 1939, there was something called the League of Nations, which was the precursor entity before the United Nations. And Emperor Haile Selassie had his country invaded by Italy. He appealed to the League of Nations for help and protection. They turned their back on him. And in so doing, destroyed whatever potential the League of Nations would have had to foster international peace. And in that moment of despair, Emperor Haile Selassie said these words. He said, "Today for me, tomorrow for you." And we didn't have to wait long. We didn't have to wait long for World War II to follow the outcomes of World War I. And I want to say to all the people of Trinidad and Tobago that what I experienced last week, today is my day. Your day will come. If these people are allowed to stamp and label Trinidad and Tobago in this way. Because you see, it is not only personal, it is national. Because whatever they may want to say, however you may want to view me, the one thing you could never erase from the history and the future of this country is that I was the Prime Minister of this country and I am the former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And when I held that office and all the other offices, I always did so with a caveat that I don't do it for myself. I do it for the greater good of the nation, to uplift the nation. And the fact that I, as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, 3 months after I left office, this is the country where a Prime Minister could leave office and 3 months after, he's the subject of Interpol activity. Doesn't say much for Trinidad and Tobago. And it doesn't say much for me either. Except that I would like to know what exactly did I do in my life as a public officer and now as a private citizen to cause the authorities in Trinidad and Tobago to put me in that situation. And if they could do that to me, they could do it to others. You will have seen the Attorney General having a shocking presentation in the Parliament a few weeks ago. As Attorney General, the country's chief law enforcement officer, who should be protecting the rights of all citizens, doesn't matter which side of the floor he's in Parliament, getting up in the Parliament and pointing at members of Parliament and saying, "I'm coming for you, and for you." And I watched that and was appalled. And I saw no objection to that from quarters in this country. Apparently, we are normalizing that kind of behavior in this country. And I experienced it last week. So today, I am calling on the Prime Minister, head of the National Security Council, and the Commissioner of Police, the officer with the responsibility for the Bureau of Interpol in Trinidad and Tobago, to tell not me, tell the country what crime I am being investigated for and why it is that the police in Trinidad and Tobago could not carry out their duties here and had to resort to Interpol. Because one thing I should tell you, Interpol is not an investigating agency. Interpol is an agency that comes in where criminal matters have been determined and persons are, in most instances, attempting to flee justice. I call this development nothing more than a dastardly defamation fabricated, constructed, and executed by the government agencies of Trinidad and Tobago, led by a government which seems to be more interested in retribution, hate, spite, divisiveness. And only such a government will put this stain on Trinidad and Tobago. Only such a government will put this stain on Trinidad and Tobago. It means that if they come out now and lie that they don't know about this and they didn't do this, then this remains on Interpol's list. Because who put it there is who has to take it off. And if they don't take it off, it means that every time I travel, anywhere I go in the world, I can expect this and worse to happen. This happened inside of CARICOM. You could imagine if I was in Belgium or South Africa or in Timbuktu, what would have been my position? Thankfully, it first arose in Antigua. And I'm calling on the government and the agency involved to do two things. One, tell the country what is the interest in me and what crime or crimes I'm associated with that requires police attention. And second, I'm calling on the government, knowing that I have done nothing wrong as far as I am concerned. I'm calling on the government to remove my name from this defamation. I knew they were very unhappy when I left CARICOM to the plaudits of my colleagues. They were equally unhappy when I received a doctorate, an honorary doctorate at Howard University. They were despairing when I gave up office in this country and walked away into private life. So they believe that since that is my record, they will create a new record for me. That's what this is about. A record according to their likeness and their image. Today, I stand here not asking anything under any Freedom of Information Act, because I know that law, not asking for anything under FIU, because I also know that law. I was involved in drafting both of them in the Parliament, so I know both of them. I'm not wasting my time there, because that is where they will take cover for the mischief that this is. I am here in the public domain, telling you what is on the record, telling you what is abroad, telling you what I have experienced, and calling on the authorities here to just give us the transparency that the Commissioner of Police promised, and tell the country what this is about. And when you do that, take my name out of your defamation. I want to ask you, members of the media, since you have come here from town, the edge of town here, I will give you one non-Interpol question. So I'm not going to do any interview on any other matters. I want to focus on this issue on the interview. And promise you, I know you have lots of things you may want to ask me. And I promise you, I don't think I've done an interview with the media since I've left office. I don't think I have. I promise you that sometime in the not too distant future, to invite you back here so we can talk about random thoughts about things in general. If you have any questions on the matter that I've just raised, put it to me now and I'll see if I can assist you.
Dr. Rowley, are you contemplating legal action?
No. At this location, I am not. But I don't know what the answer to the questions are. I'll ask questions. And those questions should be answers. And the person who gives the answers should be able to give them in and out of Parliament.
Did you get any decision to leave Trinidad?
No. I've traveled. I've told you I went to the UK 2 weeks ago. It's very smoothly. I applied for a UK visa, I got it with no problem, with the assistance of the officers locally. I have never had any issue traveling in and out of this country. I consider myself a citizen who enjoys the fact that I travel with the passport of Trinidad and Tobago. Interestingly enough, I am now traveling on a diplomatic passport, like the last one. But when I gave up office as Prime Minister, the new passport was issued. The diplomatic passport was there as former Prime Minister. That's the passport I traveled.
You said your Antigua officers said that it was a case of mistaken identity. Is it that they couldn't believe
I think the officer was being nice to me. Because my inquiries further show that it's an Interpol situation. And it concerns me.
Will this recent incident, dictate your future travel plans?
No, I will continue to travel. And as a matter of fact, I'm traveling to Barbados on Thursday. And I have plans for the travel. I will not be stymied by these people who believe that they can dictate my future. I'm simply bringing this to the attention of the public for whatever it is good, and to let you know where we have reached in this country with our interactions in the political arena.
Have you been any time to speak with Commissioner about it?
No, I'm not doing that either, because I've got all these persons, like my former colleagues who populate the Parliament now, who will hear that police looking for me and ask me, police, are you really looking for me? I don't want to do that. Police know my address. Yeah? I will not be speaking to the police first. It is for the police now to speak to you or to me. Yes, Keith.
Sorry.
Good morning, Kim Woodram at the Express. Dr. Rowley, I have a question that may be a little naive in that you're a former Prime Minister and very recently so. So I then what kind of protection is offered to a former Prime Minister, like an actual Prime Minister, if it is so easy to go and place your name on Interpol's watch list and anything could then proceed to happen to you out there outside the country?
Well, as I said, I consider the action to be one that is geared to generate a reaction. And that reaction is not to be pleasant. With respect to security, my state security no longer exists. I have, when I left office 2 months ago. These levels of security have all evaporated. I don't make a disservice. I let it be. I'm a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, and I genuinely believe my grandmother's position. And if you're born to hang, you can't hang.
What was your initial reaction when you heard that you weren't Interpol watch list?
I am scandalized. I am scandalized. Because I know that one does not arbitrarily end up in an Interpol list. It has to be something being pursued. There has to be official contact, and there has to be documentation of non-crime. I'm not entirely surprised, given the behavior of some of my former colleagues, and given what is passing for powerful liquors in Trinidad and Tobago today. I was a little angry because the people that I hold responsible for this, putting me in a situation where my status, the effort it is to make my status that of criminal and fugitive, had no problem in putting in the chair in the Parliament as Speaker of the House of Parliament with my picture, a convicted criminal fugitive from justice to Speaker of the House. I have no problem with that. They have law enforcement issues. I put my name in a situation where I could be stopped at immigration abroad in the category of a person for whom Interpol is interested.